Hi everyone, I'm Victoria Main. I'm here with another episode of TV and Film Focus. And today I'm here with Duluth filmmaker Lance Karasti.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here, Lance. So you're a filmmaker, you're a local guy. Are you a native of Duluth? Or?
Yeah, I was born and raised here. I lived here for 18 years, went to East High School, and then for film school, I moved to Los Angeles and went to the LA Film School when I was 18. And that was a really intense program. It was called an accelerated program, which means that you don't get breaks. There's no summer or winter break. You really don't get weekends. Every weekend is a project, and you go to school 12 hours a day.
Wow.
So I got my associate degree in 13 months there, and then came back right after because I was extremely burnt out and had all that culture shock and all that. And
wow.
yeah, when I got back, it was like, have all of the skills, and now I'm in this nice, beautiful town. Like, let's start making stuff. So
Yeah.
ever since then, about 10 years ago now, I've been just making stuff here.
Okay. So I want to talk a little bit. You're working on the third film of this trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
And your first two films were kind of a combination of improvisational dialogue and scripted stuff. So let's talk about that a little bit. How you get your actors to sort of on the improv side. What kind of structure you provide for them?
Sure. So I've made 3 feature films right now, and I'm currently working on my next one. So the first movie I made was called Cult, and that was entirely scripted from beginning to end. I made that movie completely traditionally because I had just gotten out of film school. So the idea was, as I sat down and wrote a script, I got everyone together, we did pre-production, we shot it the normal way, we edited it the normal way, and then it was done. And when it was over, I just remember feeling really, really frustrated that all of the ideas I was having while I was filming were impossible to do on like the day we were doing things. When you're shooting and you have a strict schedule and a script and scenes you need to keep making, you can't just stop and start coming up with new ideas. It ruins what you're doing.
Right.
I should have listened to that frustration then, because on my second movie, Artificial, halfway through it, we tried to make it a traditional way again, but halfway through it, I threw the script out because I was just really frustrated with it. I was 24 when I was making it. I'm still young now, but you grow and learn so much that by the time you write something and you're filming it a year later, you hate it. At least I do. So
that's good to know because I'm writing something right now. So that's interesting.
Yeah, so it was like I'd sit down and like read my own words and be like, wait, this is really bad, guys. Am I really going to make you sit down and say this stuff to each other? Like, it would just happen where an actor would say something and I'd like look around and go like, is no one going to, all right, I guess I'm the director. Yeah, this is bad. It's my fault. Like, let's come up with something else. Like, let's have fun. And for Artificial, that worked really well because Artificial was about a person losing their mind, essentially. And so having the halfway point of the movie become improvisational and having all of the actors become more confused really worked for everything. And I also really think it like gave fire to the production.
Yeah.
It made everyone excited because sometimes something happens where you work on a project for a long time, and the first couple of weeks you're not really sure how it's gonna go. And once you're in the middle of production, you kind of have a sense on if you've just been wasting your time or not, but it kind of takes until the middle of a project to go, has this been a waste of time? And am I going to continue wasting my time? And I just didn't want to be in a position where me and all of these people helping me and this crew, we're just wasting our time. So I just thought, let's figure this out now. Let's figure out this process right now and figure out how to do it. So on our next movie, Hyperdark, we went into that completely improvised. There was an outline, but it was changing every day because actors would say and do things that would inspire me, and I'd go home and I'd go, okay, well, let's make this something. Let's make this a plot point. Let's make this a character arc. Let's bring this back later, and you adjust your outline for later. But the idea is that when you do an improvisational film, not only is the dialogue improvised, but so is the story, essentially. And that's what allowed me to keep doing the dialogue that way, is because when somebody would change something that was planned, you now have the option to just change the course of the movie, which is really exciting to me. I really enjoy the idea that I could show up to set, and the course of the movie changes, the movie that I'm in and that I'm directing and working on.
So you're not starting these films with the idea of, a set story arc necessarily that begins here, stuff happens in the middle, and then it ends here, because you're saying you're willing to change that.
I am, yeah. I really believe in write what you know, write and make things from your personal experience, and that was the ultimate problem with Artificial, why all of my stuff wasn't working for it, is because what I had written was a reality and a character I didn't understand. And so what the improvisation was in that film was the process of adapting my work into something I could relate to, actually, into something that I connected to. And so that was the key in going into Hyperdark. It wasn't about trying to force a certain kind of plot or force a certain kind of story, but just being authentic to what me and the crew and this group of people are feeling in this moment, in this time all together, and what we can do with these feelings and how we can express ourselves. And having said that, this isn't like a blank, we don't go in with nothing. I do have secret ideas about where I want things to go, and I am hopefully like saying the right things, so even if the actors are improvising, their key lines are coming out once in a while that they're unaware of, is the idea. The worst thing I think you can do as a director is give an actor a line reading where you directly tell them how to say the line, even with the tone you want.
It's forbidden.
Yeah, it's forbidden. Some actors love it, some actors don't. Some people who aren't actors, because I work with a lot of non-actors, think that's what directing is. They like look for it from you. They go, well, how do I say this? And I don't want them to mimic anything. I want them to feel how they're feeling in the moment, which is another reason the improvisation works so well. But yeah, I'd say when we go in, the actors have no idea what's going on plot-wise. I have some idea, but like I said, the excitement for me is when they start inspiring me, and the cycle forms where I can start changing course, changing where things are going down the road. The image I have in my mind when I'm doing this is like we're on a train track, but we're building the track in front of the train. It's kind of scary, but the pressure, I think, is really important for the type of work we're making right now.
Yeah. And so let's talk about kind of what this trilogy is on the technical side. You're shooting in this 60 frames per second format. And what do you feel like that brings to your story?
So we didn't shoot Artificial in that format. I would have if I knew about it at the time. But we did shoot Hyperdark in that format, and we're shooting the next movie in that format. And so what 60 frames per second is that it basically just means is that more frames are being captured per second by the camera. The average camera, this show right now, is probably doing 24 or 30 individual still pictures or frames per second to create an illusion of movement. You're not seeing real movement, you're seeing pictures that look like movement. So 60 frames per second is just 60 pictures to create that illusion, and it's much more smooth and it's much more real. It's almost shocking to people. It can be kind of surreal because it just looks too lifelike. And there's also some association with what's called the soap opera effect, where I think people are, they think it looks kind of cheap, but I think that's more of an association that our culture has created more than what it actually is or looks like. So that might not make a lot of sense in a vacuum, but to apply it to my own work, I'm making movies about simulations right now. My movies all take place inside of realities that are simulated, or people discovering their realities are simulated are kind of what the stories are about. So for me, having a heightened feeling of movement, a heightened feeling of motion, or a smoother looking, higher quality image that is surreal and shocking is just absolutely perfect, because that is what my characters are feeling. Their realities look too real to them or unreal. They look like something else. And that was kind of the idea, is to take this format, take this method, and use it for these really specific stories. I don't actually know if we can use high frame rates outside of really specific stories that call for them, but for what I'm doing right now, there's no other way to do it. I don't know if I would be making these movies at all if I couldn't do it this way. The format kind of inspired the whole process together.
So you're kind of going for a look that when people look at it, when viewers see it, they're not necessarily looking at it going, oh, this looks like a movie. Right. You want people to kind of feel like they're spying on a room or a place.
Exactly. someone called it an anti-movie, and that was probably my favorite thing I've heard. Because anti doesn't mean that it's not, it just means that it doesn't have the traits you would expect. Like there's the term anti-hero, where they're still the protagonist and hero of the story, but all of their traits might remind you of a villain, you know, like a Han Solo type or whatever. So that's what I'm trying to do is make anti-movies, make movies that they're movies, but the qualities of them aren't what you would normally expect. And I'm big goals, but I'm hoping to redefine kind of what people think is cinematic. I want to remove the bias of this looks cheap or this looks like a soap opera or a home movie. And so part of that is redeveloping our cinematic language and the types of shots we're doing and the types of movement we're doing with the camera to avoid certain technical problems. Like right now with normal cameras, if you move the camera a certain way or a certain kind of handheld way, it's going to look really bad.
Right.
It's going to turn people off. It's going to look not like a movie.
Right.
You can do that in a normal frame rate. So on a high frame rate, all of the rules you learn at the normal ones are they're heightened. So if you shake the camera a little bit, it makes the audience really sick. It looks really fake. So what we're doing is relearning all of the types of shots we can do and all of the types of movements we can do to make it look good and to make it look real. And yeah, to create, I mean, what we're going for is a living photo aesthetic. So the idea is to use this high frame rate and create situations where the camera itself doesn't move, the frame is perfectly still, but the movement is all happening within it. So it kind of, instead of looking at a movie screen, we want it to feel like you're looking through a window or looking at a picture, and it's alive. You're watching a conversation play out. And it might be kind of frustrating because it might be a little slow or a little awkward, or the people aren't really having a good conversation at first. But that's kind of the whole point, is that we want the everyday anxieties of social situations to just be there, to be the movie. And what I've been told by people is that it's made them more anxious than a lot of movies, because they just said, like, it felt like I was at a campfire and I didn't know how to talk to my friends and I felt weird and wanted to go home but couldn't. And I'm like, that's what the scene was about. Perfect. Like, you felt the character. So it's kind of about creating situations that are so real that you just feel like you're there, while at the same time being kind of unreal and surreal. It's a really complex line we're riding.
Yeah, it's kind of a little bit of a dichotomy.
Yeah.
But, so do you tend to work with the same, for instance, are you working with the same director of photography on these films who kind of understands the vision that you're trying to create and the look that you're going for? And
Yeah. Well, so I'm the director of photography on all of them. So yeah.
Oh, you are?
Okay. So I'm kind of a one-man crew. I have worked with the same, when I say crew, I'm mostly referring to performers.
Okay.
The biggest scene we did in Hyperdark was this 15-minute campfire shot.
Yep.
And a lot of people thought we had like a big behind-the-scenes crew for that, because it was our biggest day, and it was literally just me. I spent the whole day before just setting the camera up, putting the lights up, getting the fire to look right. Spent the whole day before that even just filming it with nobody there to make sure it would look okay. What I've been kind of doing is taking all of the skills I learned in film school, because at film school you learn everything. You learn every aspect of production. And if you want to go work on a movie set, you don't actually need all that information. It's actually a huge waste of money and time. But for me, to learn everything was perfect, because I come back here and now I'm doing everything. I like writing, I like acting, I like editing, I like sound design, I like color grading, I like doing all of it. The problem is it's really hard to be good at it all right away. So like, admittedly, like, my first movies aren't that good. They're not that good of quality. But I feel like with Hyperdark, and especially our next one, what we've done and what I've done is kind of found what I'm really good at and found some artistry in these like crafts that would usually be 5 different people's jobs. And it's allowed me to maintain more authorship over my work. And this crew that I've been working with, these performers, these actors who have been on all of the movies so far, it's been a relationship. They've also like learned how to work this way, and we've all been kind of evolving together and adapting to how everything is changing together. And yeah, for Hyperdark, it feels like the fact that we had all worked together before, even though so much changed in our process, it felt more natural than anything we have done. It really does feel like this group of people that I've been working with, we've all kind of clicked into this thing, and that's why we wanted to keep going and start shooting right away.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about your next project here, which is called Hell.
Yes.
H-E-L.
H-E-L, not H-E double hockey sticks. No censorship needed.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about what that story is, to the degree that you know it.
Right. Thank you. That's awesome. I'm going to go on a tangent right away before I even get into that. So people ask me to describe movies to them all the time, and I'll just say ahead of time, what I say right now might not be true a year from now. It wasn't true a week ago. So like the movie changes a lot, and people think I'm being secretive or mysterious or like playing coy, like trying to like keep it like a secret. It's when I not wanting to talk about things. I don't want to talk about things a lot because it's changing every day.
Yeah. So there's your disclaimer.
There's a huge disclaimer.
You got the disclaimer.
However, I've thrown a lot at this one, and it's been intact for a couple of months now. So I think it's going to be going this way. But for now, the movie is about a society that believes they exist inside of a simulation. It's absolutely 100% proven. NASA has like done calculations. There's going to be all kinds of stuff in there, but that's the premise. It's the society accepts to live in a simulation. The movie starts telling you this information. But what the movie is really about is that it's multiple stories or vignettes following interconnected characters who are just trying to cope and deal with life under this new information. And it's based on this thing where recently simulation theory has become pretty popular. It's everywhere. Everyone's talking about it. Yeah. People who run big companies talk about it like it's the future of our reality. It's even if it's not what's really going on, it's just what everyone wants to figure out right now is what it seems like. And the first question that people ask and seem to resolve right away is, well, if I live in a simulation, I still have to go to work tomorrow, still got to raise my kids, still got to eat, nothing changes, so my life won't be any different and I'll be fine. This movie hopes to take that really optimistic and naive viewpoint and shatter it, where this would change how you value things. Like, would you go to work if you knew it wasn't real? Would there even be work to go to at that point? Like, I think something would happen psychologically to the population. That would, even though we could still continue to have a functioning society, this movie explores whether that would actually be the case or not, just based on having the information that the society is somewhat an illusion. So that's a big idea and a big premise, but what we're doing is telling like 5 smaller stories within this premise of 5 individual characters and following them around for as long as their stories take us.
So I assume that, some of these characters are handling this information better than other characters, and do these characters interact or are they separate?
Yeah, so for now, today they're interconnected. And this is kind of a spoiler, but I also don't necessarily care about spoilers in this regard. But one of the things I want to do is have it start so that the characters aren't connected. You're following individual stories, and they don't like come back. It doesn't like go between characters or between stories. It's vignette style, so it's anthology style. You get one story, then the next story, then the next story. So for a while, I want you to not think they're connected, but there is a plot point probably that's going to happen halfway through that then connects everything and actually completely changes what the premise is for the second half of the movie. So the idea is to have them come together, but that's dependent on if I'm going to keep the second half of the movie intact by the time we get there. Right. So we'll see. Yes. But it's fun. I like not being like stuck to it. Like, we'll see what happens. Like, it could go anywhere.
So are you sort of in pre-production on this now, kind of, or how does that affect your, is there pre-production on a process like this?
It's like you do all forms of production at once. So like I'm doing pre-production for the next shoot on this movie, but I already shot some scenes for it and have completely edited them and stuff like that.
Okay.
We've already shot the first scene and the last scene in the movie too. The last scene isn't actually dependent on anything else that happens, so we were able to do that, which is nice. That'll make sense later when you watch it. Don't worry. It goes somewhere, I promise. But yeah, I lost my train of thought there.
So you're sort of okay. So how are you shooting? Are you shooting this as people are available? Are you kind of shooting this in bits?
Yeah, exactly. We shoot it in blocks and bits. So like we'll shoot it like I need 2 days. I'll ask someone, you got 2 days this week? What days? All right. And then I'll work the rest of the crew around them, around the primary actor usually.
Yeah.
It's very loose. And it's very weather dependent too, because I shoot almost entirely outdoors. And I actually really like Duluth, but the weather is crazy here, and it's great for filmmaking if you can adapt to it. So I want out of control weather. I want like snow and fog and rain. It looks really good on camera, especially in a high frame rate where you have all those little particles swirling around. It looks amazing with the higher motion, but you need to sometimes not shoot for 3 weeks just because the weather's not cooperating.
Right.
And that's the most frustrating thing in the world, is to cancel a shoot every day for 3 weeks going, sorry, the weather's not good enough today.
Yeah.
And then you have 10 people going like, come on. It's like, what you signed up for, sorry. Like, we're waiting till the right things happen, basically.
So you're just you're shooting this as you can.
Usually as we go. Sometimes there are scenes that appear, like I said, the ending or the beginning, where there actually isn't a context that's going to change what happens in those scenes, so we can shoot them out of order. But I prefer to start at the first scene, and then chronologically just go in order so things can change and adjust, and if they need to in the story. But yeah, it's a mix of pre-production, post-production, and shooting all at once. You're editing the scenes you just shot while planning the next ones. And that can be frustrating, but it can also be really good, because almost every movie these days needs reshoots, and we can do our reshoots just in production. We don't need to come back later. Like, the first scene we shot didn't work, so we had to redo it, but it's fine. The actors still live here. We don't need to fly them in 2 years from now and have them look different and have their performance be different or anything like that.
Right.
Like, it'll match.
Well, and I would think, at least since you're doing that improvisational kind of stuff, I would think it would help your actors. As an actress, it would certainly help me if you shot something from beginning to end instead of randomly, shooting scenes as you can, So
well, especially for Hell, that's going to be important, because it really does follow some strong character arcs. Hyperdark was kind of the opposite of how Hell's going to work, because I was the main character and the only person who knew what was going on consistently the whole movie. The actors were almost in the dark entirely. Most of the time they would show up for a scene and not know where it was in the movie or what it meant, just what their goals were in the scene, and that it was a social situation they were supposed to get through somehow. But that was really interesting for me, because that was more of a case where this is a movie about my character specifically, so I'm the only one who's here for every scene. So even though my character doesn't know what's going on in the movie, it's about him being in the dark, I'm the only person making it that actually knows what the story is, and all of the actors are the ones who are in the dark, even though in the movie they're the ones who are supposed to know more than what they lead on. And I feel like that all kind of worked, though. I don't know. Maybe you can tell, but I kind of like doing things the opposite way and seeing if you can get the same results and seeing how that changes the results, and just I don't know. I like experimenting with the process, basically.
Yeah. It seems, maybe it's just me, but it seems to me that there's a little bit of a theme in this trilogy that deals with sort of either latent or obvious anxieties.
Yeah.
And things that cause them. So let's talk about anxiety, Lance.
Yeah, let's do it. I'm already ready. I'm squirming. Yeah, if you watch Hyperdark, this is how I am the whole movie.
I did watch Hyperdark. I have seen it.
My mom said that she had never felt more anxious for me in her whole life, and I'm like, well, that's great. That's my daily life, so fun. Yeah, it's about anxiety. Hyperdark is very specifically about social anxiety. So let's go back to Artificial. Artificial is when I started to change things up and improvise. Artificial wasn't supposed to be about anxiety, but it became about that halfway through when we were just improvising, because when you improvise, whatever's just kind of happening in your life naturally works its way in, and that's really what I like. So for Hyperdark, I wanted to make a movie really specifically about social situations and create sort of this outer mythology that was heightening the situations where you thought there might be more going on. But ultimately, that's what social anxiety is. Like, maybe you're not concerned your friends are aliens out to get you, but maybe you're still questioning their motivations and why they're talking to you a certain way, or why they just snapped, or if you're being too weird, something like that. So it was a really fun movie for me to just put myself into all these social situations and just put myself through the ringer. That
scene, there's a scene in Hyperdark where it's the campfire scene, where the character that you play is like there and seemingly, in a position to finally relax and just chill out. When other people at this gathering start saying, let's go down here to the crib. And I thought that the story you told about, and I'd like you to tell that story about what that anxiety is about. We're at the party and I finally feel like I'm okay for a minute. And now somebody's going to mess it up and make me go somewhere else.
So that's a 14.5-minute scene. It's one shot, doesn't move, all takes place at a campfire. And the conception of that scene was to create a really thrilling, suspenseful scene in a really almost boring moment that you would live in every day, a campfire with your friends. And what it was based on was, I'll tell you what happens in the movie first. In the movie, my character goes to this campfire after he just had a really, really weird interaction with a girl who's also going to be at the campfire, and also had a really, really weird interaction with his best friend who invited him. So he's going into a situation already preloaded with a bunch of anxieties. And the film is kind of about maybe aliens, maybe people on the other side of the simulation, maybe something or someone watching him because he has seen too much. So the scene is about him suspecting some new people who have showed up to the campfire as being in on it or being an enemy of some sort. What the scene is actually about to me is a real life situation that has happened to me plenty of times. Go to a campfire, you're feeling comfortable, you're finally ready to relax, you're finally ready to enjoy yourself, and someone shows up and goes, I don't like this situation, let's go somewhere else. And it's just the idea of, I just got cozy, I'm like comfy, it took me 20 minutes to relax, and now I have to get up and leave, and you're a stranger and I don't know you, and now that all the social dynamics are different. And it's such a simple little thing, but to take that kind of anxiety, which everyone faces, I think, everyone's dealt with that situation where they like the situation they're in and then they're being asked to leave and they don't understand why by their friends, and then use it to heighten this sort of insane alien drama going on around the scene too. So it was all about taking real personal anxieties and then using them to tell or hint at a much bigger, scarier story.
Well, and I really liked that about that part of the film because it was, and actually all the parts of that film,
Thank you.
sort of being about an unnamed anxiety source, like, unnamed force working against you. So, I love what you're doing. It's good stuff. It's really interesting.
Thank you.
So if folks want to find out more about your Hell project, the last of this trilogy, correct? Or the third of this. Who knows if it'll be the last?
Yeah, who knows? Who knows if it's a trilogy?
Right. But they can go, you have on YouTube.
Yeah.
They can just look for Lance Karasti.
If you Google search Lance Karasti, I'm the only one. So Hell's the first thing that pops up. It's the easiest way actually to tell you to find me. It's just Google my name. It's there. Like Twitter, YouTube, it all comes up.
Okay.
Yeah, we're doing, if you want more information on Hell, we're doing a crowdfunding site for it right now. We have a trailer out for it, and we have a trailer out for Hyperdark, which you can also purchase right now.
Talks a lot about how a lot more information about the project.
Oh, yeah, if you want to get into the process, I have a couple videos out right now, and I'm actually making another video about pretty much everything we just talked about, but hopefully in a more coherent and planned way on my end.
Cool. Well, Lance, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
Interesting stuff. If you want to find more about Lance's projects, go to YouTube. Just Google Lance Karasti and you'll find him.
Yeah, thanks.
See you next time.